desert base. Truth don't hide, it just waits for a face, for a face. Big footprints in a pine slick path. Bob Lazar files with a government laugh. Court dates lost in a sea of red tape. We ain't 10-4, we just stay awake. True crime tales in a borrowed voice. We speak for the silence, not by choice. Got boots on the dirt and eyes on the skies, digging up stories they hoped would die. Mic, truth, and thunder, we don't back down. We're the Bible in the glove box and boots on the ground. Aliens, lies, and backroom deals. We break that silence, 'cause the soul feels real. Military broadcast, midnight run, teaching vets how to speak what the war's done. From trigger pulls to microphone stands, from combat zones to healing hands. Public records, missing names, unsealed files, classified games. We chase what's buried, not what trends, and we pray for light at the truth's deep end. Mic, truth, and thunder, we don't back down. We're the Bible in the glove box and boots on the ground. Aliens, lies, and backroom deals. We break that silence, 'cause the soul feels real. Some chase fame, we chase the facts. Some fold quick, we read the tracks. It ain't paranoia if it's always been there, and we ain't scared to lay it bare. Into the storm. We ain't perfect, but we were made for this form.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Into the Weeds podcast here on Military Broadcast Radio. I had that on loop. My bad. I hope everybody is doing well today. I see Dark Angel, Shorty Pie, Kathleen Fleck, Milk and Honey and Mayhem, and Samantha. And I saw Marissa Monroe. Thank you. And Cassandra Rose. Thank you all for being here tonight. Oh, I see Toddy as well. Thank you for joining us, Toddy. Tonight is going to be a pretty emotional night. I have been thinking about this topic for since Wednesday, since I confirmed that Rebecca Micciolo was going to be our guest tonight. And I'll just say that, yeah, I've been extremely emotional this week thinking about Corey Micciolo and what he went through. But before we get into that, I did want to let you guys know, since I've been gone for, well, this is my second week, we helped find Shannon LaFleur. Shannon LaFleur was found last Friday, I believe. And I don't know much of the details, but I do know that she was found safe and that she has spoken or had some kind of contact with her aunts. So I'm very excited about that. I'm extremely humbled that they even trusted us with the information to put it out there. And so I'm very thankful that Shannon has been found, but we also need to find Chanda. And I'm just going to play this video real quick to remind you of who she is. It's Chanda Lore Sanders. And she went missing July 13th of 2022. And here's this video real quick. Okay, so that was Chanda Lore Sanders, and she went missing officially, we believe, from Brownsville, Texas. And there may have been a sighting of her in Oklahoma City last year at the Smokapalooza, but we're not 100% sure about that. So please just keep her name out there and share her image. And hopefully she's found, or at least contacts her family so that they can have some peace. And so tonight we are presenting a very heartbreaking case, the case of Corey Micciolo. We'll hear from Corey's grandmother, Rebecca Micciolo, about the paper trail that they created with doctors, police, the Child Protection Agency in their areas. We're going to talk about accountability in child services so that this doesn't happen again and another child isn't failed. And then, unfortunately, a tragedy struck twice in their family, and Rebecca's son overdosed. And so we are going to be talking about the opioid epidemic or crisis. And we're just going to have a very candid talk about her life and hopefully in the pursuit of helping somebody else. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up Rebecca Micciolo.
The interview of the week is brought to you by Jersey Mike's, a sub above.
Hello, Rebecca. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So we had a conversation on Wednesday. I told everybody about it the other day when we were reading emails of Gypsy, and I was kind of shaken up so bad that I didn't really get into that whole live stream very, very well. But I'm glad that you're here and able to educate us on what happened in your situation so that we can try and prevent this from happening. So can you tell us a little bit about Corey and what type of kid he was and his favorite things you want us to know about?
He was so active and so smart. He loved the solar system, the planets. He loved drawing, anything art related.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, he was funny. He was a little joker, you know. He had such a sense of humor and
Mm-hmm.
just happy go lucky
Mm-hmm.
until he wasn't.
Yeah.
You know, that all changed when his biological father started coming around, and you know, Corey changed a little bit because he was no longer allowed to be who he was. He was
Mm-hmm.
being told how to be and how to act, and so yeah, it was. But up until then, he was happy-go-lucky. Like I said, he just loved to help others and just very kind and caring.
Mm-hmm. He's a very adorable kid.
Thank you.
I love kids that age. They're the most real and most loving. And yeah, kids that age are so rewarding to be around.
Yes.
But unfortunately, we have this, and that's why we're here today. And
You know, and kids his age are so trusting, especially, you know, they don't understand that adults could harm them or would. You know, they don't, you know, Corey was with us for the first 5 years of his life. He went to school, to preschool, and everybody there was good to him, all the grown-ups. And so in his eyes, grown-ups are good people. They help you. They, you know, so I know this really, you know, it's just not what, you know, having a dad, he wanted a dad so bad. And I know that this isn't what he signed up for. He definitely didn't think this was how it was going to be, and none of us really did. So
Yeah. Yeah. So, I guess, so you were telling me when Christopher first came into Corey's life, the first time that he actually stayed with him, he came back hurt.
it was the first time Corey went to the Gregor household. His parents, Chris lived with his parents at the time, and Corey was going over to meet them, the grandparents, for the first time. And he was only supposed to go until 8 o'clock that night and come back to us. And they hadn't intended to bring him back. They thought he was going to stay over there. And when I insisted they bring him home because he didn't know any of them really, including
Mhm.
Chris, Chris reluctantly brought him home, but Corey came home with a busted lip. He had blood all over his shirt and his shorts. With no explanation, he dropped him off at the curb and drove away and
Mm.
didn't tell us anything and wouldn't answer a text or a phone call. And I also called David Gregor, Chris's father, Corey's grandfather, and no explanation. No, they wouldn't answer my calls or texts. So we went and reported it to the police department, who then called Special Victims Unit and DCP&P and reported it.
Okay. So the very
Um,
first incident you report.
yes,
Okay.
because, I mean, we didn't want to do that, but nobody was answering us. And
Mhm.
Corey was acting very out of character.
Mhm.
So we just felt like something was wrong. And by this point, Brianna had led on to that, Chris wasn't such a nice person. And that's why she didn't want him around. And, so I was kind of getting a better understanding and maybe thinking, you know, we should report it.
Yeah. No,
Um,
I think you did the right thing,
yeah,
especially since you guys didn't really know him, and what your daughter knew about him, unbeknownst to you. I don't even know that I would be able to even let him anywhere near my child.
yeah.
Can you explain that? And when did you actually find out about that?
About Chris being
About
Corey's father.
yes. Well, and about how Brianna and Christopher got together.
Um, I guess she told me, a little bit here and there. She never really, said much, I guess Corey was a few months old, and, we had moved down to Florida. And, well, I didn't go. I stayed in New Jersey to work. And I was going down for a week or two, here and there out of the month. And so my husband was there, and, um, I guess let me rewind. The day Bree had Corey, and, the day after she gave birth, we come home from the hospital,
Mhm.
and I was in my room, and I heard somebody, come in, and I go downstairs, and Chris was there, but I didn't know who Chris was, because when I first met him, he didn't tell me his actual name.
Uh-huh.
He lied, and he lied about his age.
Mhm.
Um, that's important later on, because, we found out that he sexually assaulted Brianna. He gave her drugs and alcohol and had his way with her. And I believe a few more of her friends, but Brianna ended up pregnant.
Mhm.
Nobody else did, as far as I know. Um, but anyway, so, back to, she gives birth, and Chris comes to the house because he wanted to see, this child, and, see if he could look at him and say he was his or not.
Yeah.
Because, you can look at a newborn baby and know who it belongs to immediately, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I don't know, something just, it didn't sit with me the first time I met him. When she first became pregnant, he was still creeping around a little bit because he was trying to convince her to get an abortion.
Mm-hmm.
And something about him didn't sit well with me then. And then, of course, now this night after Corey's born and he's at my house, I don't know, I didn't want him there. I don't know what it was, but I took the baby, Corey, and went upstairs. Something about him just didn't sit well with me. So, I just kind of said to Bree, like, what was that freak doing here? Like, what does he want, after he left? And she said, oh, he was helping me with my math homework. I said, okay. Because she was still afraid to tell me everything because she knows how I would have reacted.
Yeah.
And I guess I didn't get the complete version of it until we were down in Florida. And then Chris shows up there. Come to find out, we moved to Florida and he's suddenly going to college in Florida. I don't know if that was already a plan. I can't say that he did it just because we were there. But he shows up at the house in Florida and my husband calls me one night and he's like, that friggin' kid's here. I'm like, what kid? That freak, that weird kid from New Jersey, the big-headed one or whatever. I don't know what he called them. And I'm like, who? And so I asked my daughter, Nikki, like, who is dad talking about? She's like, oh, Chris. And I'm like, Chris? She's like, whatever. And I'm like, oh. I'm like, what's he want? Oh, he goes to school here. So he knew we lived here. So he just came by to visit. And I'm like, okay. Well, I find out later on, he was there because he wanted Brianna to go to Walgreens because they sell paternity tests at Walgreens. And Mr. Master's degree thought you can go do this paternity test at home and get instant results. I guess he didn't have his master's degree yet, so I guess it's not fair to say. But anyway, he didn't realize you had to send it in and pay a couple $100 or whatever it was, and he didn't want to do it. Of course, Brianna wasn't doing it. And if she asked me for the money, I'm going to know something's up, so it didn't happen. They didn't get to do it that way. And then he came another time or two and then dropped off the face of the earth. But we found out he had another girl pregnant at that time in Florida, somebody he was living with in Florida. So
now, did he ever have any charges filed on him with that other child?
Well, the girl he got pregnant, are you talking about? Because she aborted the baby because she knew he beat her so much that she knew that if she had a child, it wouldn't be a good ending. So she unfortunately, well, maybe fortunately, I don't know how people view that, but she terminated her pregnancy and got away from him. We found out after Chris started seeing Corey and got, partial custody of Corey, that he did have an open DCP&P case for abusing his live-in girlfriend's son. And that was an open case right when he first started coming around Corey. And it's really odd because right before Corey went to meet the Gregors for the first time, his parents wanted to meet me. They didn't want to meet Brianna, and I never could understand why. But then I figured out Chris had talked so bad about her. And, I think he was afraid Brianna would reveal things that she knew about him that I wouldn't have known, so it was safe if they met me. What am I going to say? What did I know? Because he had to know that I didn't know any of this stuff really right now because I was still kind of being nice to him. So so the first time I went to their house, they insisted we have this meeting. I called it an interview because it was kind of like a job interview. It felt like, I went there with all these pictures of Corey from birth to present thinking, I was so excited that he was going to have these new grandparents, his grandparents, and, they were very smart people and what good, they were going to do for him. And still not quite understanding why Brianna was being so difficult when it came to Chris, because I still didn't really know. So anyway, I go to their house, and one of the questions that really stuck out to me, well, the first thing, I tried to show Chris's mother the pictures, slide them across the table, and the father reaches and takes them. And every time she went to speak, he really didn't let her speak. He, answered the questions or whatever.
Mhm.
And one question he asked me, which was really strange. Well, there were two. He asked if Corey had any special needs and if we had any involvement with DCP&P. And I thought, what an odd question, right?
Mhm.
Like, I don't know. That doesn't normally come up when you're talking to somebody about your kids, you know.
Mhm.
Oh, how old's your son? Any involvement with DCP&P? I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know. That's usually. And I said, no. You know, it was odd. But now, like after the fact, it made sense because they knew Chris had an open case. And I guess they were afraid that if we had any involvement, DCP&P would connect. Oh, this is the father of this kid. He's accused of doing this. So it made sense after the fact. We didn't know right away why he was asking, but you know, it now it makes sense, and it did, you know, after when we realized, because I was told by a DCP&P worker about that open case,
Mhm.
and it only went away because the girl packed up and moved out of state. So who knows how that would have ended.
So I watched the grandfather's testimony, and do you think his connections to law enforcement, considering he was a retired state trooper, and then I remember him listing off like a long list of like agencies or departments or something that he was involved with. So do you think that that influenced them getting 50% custody as well, or Christopher getting?
I think I don't think getting the, well, you know, I don't know, because I don't know how well he knew, you know, in the where we lived at the time. I don't know how well he knew, you know, the judges and things. I think when, you know, I don't want to give him too much credit, but I do
Yeah, no.
think him being, you know, retired state police, I think he knew people here and there in certain places, you know.
Mhm.
I know that with the local police, whenever we would call because Chris was slashing our tires or stalking us to the point where Corey was hiding, and you know,
Really?
he would drive by in the car with a hoodie pulled down over his head and slouched down, and Corey would see him and go into panic mode. That's my daddy. That's like flipping out, hiding. Like he was a weirdo. He was a freak. There was something wrong with this guy.
And all this
And we
was
would call the
documented?
police. Yeah, it was all documented. But what happened was we would call the local police, and you know, Chris would just say, oh, my dad is blah blah blah, and then you know his dad would come into the picture, and oh, you know, the buddy system there, the cops, I guess, you know, some people may get annoyed that I say this, but I do believe they stick together, most of them.
Yeah.
And you know, it was turned around, you know. Bad things were said about us to David Greger because, you know, the cops felt this loyalty. So they would tell him things, you know, and a lot of it, like the stuff they would tell him, I don't know if the police actually told him these things or if he just kind of spun his own tale. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, but everybody was ignoring the fact that there was a child involved and we were saying this was happening, and they were just worried about protecting one of their own.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
you
that's what it
know,
feels like.
yeah, I mean, I don't think it hurt being a retired state trooper. Let's just say that,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah, my when I was listening to, I think, oh, it was the testimony of the grandfather. I was listening to it yesterday, I believe, on the way to church, and because I was teaching vacation Bible school all this week, which everything that we talked about on Wednesday, I was learning how to communicate to children, and it was very odd. But I don't remember where I was going with that. But oh yeah, my husband thought after he heard the long list of things that he did, the grandpa, he was like, "Oh, well, that's why, you know, the dad never got in trouble and all
Well,
that."
yeah, he always covered up, but when Chris was growing up, he never had to answer for anything because dad made it go away, you know.
Mhm.
But you know, this was a big one. You know, I don't think David Greger had the power to make this go away. You know, well, you know, let me take that back, because I think if Brianna didn't start her Facebook group, Justice for Corey, I think it would have went away. I think Chris would have been charged with endangering the welfare of a child, and that would have been the end of it. But Brianna wasn't having that, and I wasn't having that, and we made a lot of noise. And I think that's the only reason the case went as far as it did.
No, I agree, because when I was listening to a breakdown of the case by somebody, and so it sounds like after Corey died, Christopher ran,
Right.
and it almost sounded like his parents aided and abetted his flight in some form or fashion a couple of times.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, that upsets me.
Well, you know, this is my theory, and it's only a theory. I can't prove this. But David Greger knew what was going to happen. As soon as Corey passed, the cops were going to be called. He knew that. He's a retired state trooper.
Yeah.
My theory is he told Chris, get out of there. They're going to be calling the cops, and they're going to detain you and question you. Get out of there. That's what I think happened.
Yeah.
And, you know, they'll never admit that, obviously, but just knowing them, just getting to know them, you know, over time, and just how they were and how they handled things, I'm certain that's what happened. Because then David Greger calls the police station in that town where the hospital is and reports an unaccompanied death. He knew it was going to happen. He knew what was going to happen. He knew exactly how it was going to go down. And I feel like he kind of did that and stalled the police and everything so Chris could get a good head start. I truly believe that. I mean, you know, Chris's defense attorney will tell you about my vivid imagination and all that. And, you know, if that's what he wants to call it. But that's how I believe it happened. I believe Chris was told to go. And, you know, what his plan was or for how long he was going, was he coming back? I mean, I don't know. You know, they hired an attorney that very next morning. So, I mean, you know.
Well, I think the thing I struggle with the most is the fact that they didn't initially even arrest him for his death, did they? It was for
No.
the treadmill video.
It was for endangerment, yes.
Okay.
He didn't get charged he was out and free for a year before he was charged with murder.
That is just mind-blowing to me. I don't understand that at all.
I don't know if that has anything to do with being a cop's kid. I feel like my kid would have been in jail from day one and never gotten out. That's my opinion.
Oh yeah, totally. I totally agree with that. Okay, so what led up to Corey's passing, and if you could, like the main events that happened, so that we can kind of get an idea, because a lot of people have not heard this, and especially broadcasting on MBR. A lot of my veterans and first responders don't watch a lot of true crime and stuff like that. So, so if you could please just kind of break it down a little bit for us to understand what happened.
Well, you know, months prior to Corey's death, I mean, like I said, from the very first visit, he was being abused, and it went on, and it was, you know, it was daily. I mean, there would be a new mark on him, and just, you know, Corey not wanting to really tell us, you know, because then if he did, we said something to Chris, and then it got him beaten even more the next time, you know. And this went on, you know, up until well, you know, I guess once Chris had, you know, 50-50 custody, what happened was, you know, before we realized what was really happening, Corey was going to school in Chris's school district. It was a better district. And so in order for for Corey to go to school there, he had to spend a half a day more during the week at that address, or he couldn't go to public school there. He'd have to go in our district, which was 5 minutes away from Chris. But anyway, so shortly after Corey went to stay there, Brianna goes to pick him up because then it's her partial part of the week. So Chris would drop him at school the morning that we were due to get him back, and Bree would get him after school. And then he'd stay with us until that Monday morning. So Wednesday afternoon, Bree would get him, and then he would go back to Chris. We would take him to school Monday morning. Chris would get him Monday, or however it worked, something like that. But anyway, this one particular day, Brianna goes to pick him up. And as Corey's walking down the hallway towards her, she could see like these marks from his forehead all the way down his face. It looked like rug burn. And, you know, she noticed later on it was down one whole side of his body. And that's when Corey told her that his daddy put him on the treadmill because he said he was fat. And, you know, Brianna, of course, was like, oh my gosh, you know, you can't put a kid on a treadmill, 6 years old, 5, you know, whatever, 5 years old, whatever. You just don't do that. And, you know, she said something to Chris, whatever. And I don't remember what the exchange was, but we reported that to DCP&P. And so their answer was, well, you know, Corey was just playing on it, and we told Chris not to let him do it anymore. So that was the first treadmill incident. So we find out that Chris was using the treadmill as some form of abuse all along. We just didn't know it. And so, you know, these little just different things, you know, blood in the eyes, like bruises, you know, just he was covered in bruises all the time. And, you know, fast forward, we would make reports. I would call, Bree would call, my daughter would call, my ex-husband would call and make these, you know, reports to DCP&P. And just every time they would go to the Greger house, and David Greger being the highly decorated state trooper, and everybody in our house has master's degree in education and this and that. Well, then of course the abuse isn't happening over there. And that would be it, you know, because the retired state trooper said it didn't happen there, then it didn't happen there. And that was it. And it would always turn around to what's going on in my house, because I guess I was divorced. So I'm not a retired state trooper. I'm not a retired anything, you know? And so the bad things have to be happening at my house because the state trooper said so.
Yeah.
And so, you know, here we come up to, you know, just a week or so prior to Corey's death, and there's another treadmill incident. And, you know, prior to that, there were some other injuries that we had seen, and, you know, just really bad ones that, of course, we made the phone calls, and, you know, we were just kind of losing our patience, you know, with when are they going to help? And Corey had lost patience and said, nobody's going to help me. Nobody listens, you know, and he accepted what was going to be, you know, he knew we were trying, and he just kind of was like, you know, nobody's going to help me. So the treadmill, the next treadmill incident that we're aware of happens. And I don't remember, I know Corey told Bree about it, and I don't remember if Bree said something to the DCP&P worker about there being cameras in the gym or something. But anyway, there's the video that I don't know if you got to see it, but a lot of people have seen it was shown in court.
Yeah, I finally watched it yesterday.
Yeah. So now DCP&P has this video. I don't know what the guy did with it. It must have stuck it up his ass or something, because he damn sure didn't do anything about it if he watched it. Nothing happened. This is another thing. I'm told that when something like this happens, DCP&P has to notify the prosecutor's office when it's something serious, and the prosecutor can decide whether to take a case or not. Now, this is where there's an issue. We don't know if the prosecutor's office was aware of Corey prior to his death, or if they weren't. They say that they never interviewed him prior to his death. We're told that they did, and there's even a document out there that we were given that says they did. But I don't know. I don't know if that's true. Did they interview him and think it wasn't enough to take the case, or did they not? We don't know. Anyway,
That's really upsetting.
it is. And you don't know who to trust and what to think. I mean, everybody failed Corey and failed us for so long. I don't trust anybody. I don't know what to think. But, you know, a lot of people, I just want to make this very clear. The treadmill incident, that video, that's not what killed Corey. Just so everybody knows. Chris beat the shit out of him that day for telling on him, for telling the doctors what Chris was doing to him. Chris knew the gig was up, and he beat him for telling on him.
Yeah.
The treadmill video didn't cause his death. I think it attributed to it all the chronic abuse, but that's not what killed him.
And they've never attributed any one thing to his death.
Well, it was blunt force trauma. He lacerated his heart and his liver, and his lung was bruised. But we don't know what that blunt force trauma is. I think it was a kick, a punch, or several. And then the fact he just let him suffer. He had to be in horrible pain to have a lacerated, all of those injuries. And he had defecated, you know, in his pants and vomited, and he was shutting down. Can you imagine what that baby was sitting there thinking? And that bastard was on the phone with these whores, these girls that he was hooking up with, and took a sickening photo of Corey about an hour prior to his death.
Really?
He took a selfie, and Corey's lips were gray and blue, like he was dying. And this bastard takes a freaking picture and sends it to these girls that he's texting. It makes me sick. And this is why I say he needs to be carried out of prison in a body bag. He needs to get his ass beat every day for a month and suffer and take his last breath by himself, laying in that dirty prison. That's what he deserves.
I agree. And he hasn't even shown any remorse or anything, has he?
No, he's never admitted to anything. As a matter of fact, at the sentencing, he told Brianna he's sorry she lost Corey. Like, lost? He's dead. You killed him. He's not lost. You know, he just sick.
Now, I have a video of your daughter on Inside Edition. Do you mind if I play that to give the audience a little bit?
That I hated that interview because they were at my house. Listen, let me tell you the story real quick with them. They came to my house and spent 5, 6, 7 hours there. They took my curtains down, rearranged my furniture, and did all this big, long, whatever production for like a 3-minute segment. And it didn't even really, you know, I don't know. I guess you can show it though. It's just, they were my least favorite, you know, because they made such a big production. And then it didn't really reveal a lot, you know, in my opinion. It didn't tell the story.
No, I agree with that. It's just a kind of general overview, but I thought it was the best one that I had seen of your daughter speaking about what happened instead of just being on the stand.
No, that's fine. You can show it.
Okay. Let me try this. Okay. Here we go.
It was shocking video. A father forcing his young son to run on a treadmill. He was so abusive to the 6-year-old. The boy days later. The father has just been found guilty of manslaughter. Now the boy's heartbroken mother is speaking with our Em Mercogliano in this exclusive interview.
It's video that shocked the nation. A 6-year-old forced to run on a treadmill at high speeds. The little boy keeps falling off and his dad keeps ordering him back on. He falls hard 6 times. 12 days later, prosecutors say Corey Micciolo died from chronic abuse.
I just miss him. And sometimes I just want to say sorry, but I know I tried.
Now Corey's mom, Brianna, is speaking to Inside Edition. She says her little boy told her about being forced to run on the treadmill.
Because that happened a few times. Like, that video wasn't the first time it happened.
Last week, Corey's father, Christopher Greger, was found guilty of aggravated manslaughter and child endangerment. Brianna, who testified against him at the trial, says she suspected Corey was being mistreated by his father.
What did you see?
He had bruises, like, if someone were to grab you, he had them on his arms, like fingerprint bruises. Wow. He had bruises on his forehead. He's had black eyes. I would ask him how he got it, and he was so afraid. He most of the time, he wouldn't tell me what happened. And whatever lie his father told him to say is what he would say to me.
I spoke with her at her mother's house, where Corey spent lots of time.
Here we are in Corey's grandmother's home in Englishtown, New Jersey. You could see his pictures hang on the wall here. Corey's mother says the abuse captured on the gym's surveillance camera was turned over to authorities a week before he died. She believes if they would have done something, he would still be alive.
She and Greger were never married. In fact, she says they only had sex once. She says he despised her for a number of reasons and took it out on the boy.
I think he hated me because I didn't get an abortion. He didn't want to be a dad. I think it kind of was like forced on him by his family.
She blames not just Christopher Greger for Corey's death, but she also blames the system that she says ignored her pleas for help.
I hate him, and he took everything from me.
Did your son ever ask you to save him?
Yes, he did. And he asked me why no one was helping. So he just gave up.
I am very sorry that this has happened to you and to Corey. And I can't even imagine it. I can't, especially doing all the right things and still being let down and still it coming to such an end. I can't even imagine.
It shouldn't have happened. It didn't have to happen.
No, it did not.
Listen, nobody wanted to do their job.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wanted to stand up to the state trooper. I think that's a lot of the problem. I think people were fearful because he would run his mouth about this or that, and maybe they were afraid of what he may be able to do to them. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But, bottom line is a little boy died because of that.
Mm-hmm. And now your daughter is trying to hold DC PMP accountable for not, they pretty much facilitated his death, in my opinion.
Yeah. So the day before Corey passed, Brianna, took him to the pediatrician for a child abuse exam, his regular pediatrician. And she was going to take him earlier, but it was Chris's parenting time. So DCPMP said, we can't make him take him. We can't make him let you take him. You have to wait until it's your parenting time. Have you ever heard of such nonsense?
No, I haven't.
I mean, they'd seen the bruises. They documented them. But you have to wait. Why not walk in there and say to Chris, Chris, the kid's covered in bruises. We need him checked out. If you're saying they happen from, sports or whatever, he's got to get checked out. They're all over his body. It's not normal, but no, nobody said that to him. So Bree had to wait until that Thursday. And she takes him to the pediatrician, and Corey, I don't know if you watched the pediatrician's testimony, but Corey told her what happened. So she had Brianna take him to the hospital, which was right in the same area there's a child abuse expert at the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And so Bree took him there, but the expert wasn't in. They had left for the day. And, so Corey did talk to the emergency room doctors. DCPMP was in communication with the emergency room doctor and Corey's pediatrician. But nobody came back and said, you don't have to take him back to his father. Nobody said that. She was still made to drop him off there. And we thought about not doing it. But then, Chris was already calling the police saying she kidnapped him and everything, even though he knew where she was with him.
Mm-hmm.
So what was going to happen if she didn't return him when was time?
Mm-hmm.
She was going to be hauled into court,
Yeah.
maybe even jail. I don't know, for interfering with,
Custody. Yeah.
right. So we always went, we followed the law, unfortunately.
Now, some of the people who may be criticizing some of what happened here are you guys. I don't know if there are any people like that or not.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot.
Okay, well, I did see that, and you told me as well that Brianna and Christopher struggled with drug abuse. So can you kind of tell us about that? Because they focus on hers, but they don't say anything about his.
Yeah, because she was the one on trial, not him.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree.
I can only speak, about Brianna, and it wasn't the way they made it seem in court. She wasn't a daily drug user.
Mm-hmm.
Never did anything around Corey or while she was, with Corey. I can't really speak on what Chris was using. I can just tell you that one of the times that he was arrested for stalking Brianna, there were syringes and things found in his car. I don't know what he was using them for. Maybe steroids. What do I know? I have no idea. But they both failed a drug test during custody hearings. But it seemed Brianna got more punishment for that than he did. Although he did lose custody for a brief time and had to have supervised visitation with Corey for a brief time.
But they don't really bring that up in the trial, do they?
No, Brianna's issues were brought up and Chris's we couldn't talk about because you couldn't, what's the word I'm looking for? You didn't want the jury to judge him based on anything other than what they were there to judge. But yet Brianna was being judged. And to me, that helped them form an opinion.
Yeah, it did.
And that was very upsetting to me. I said to the prosecutor's office, I didn't feel that that was appropriate. I didn't think that they should talk about it. And I was told that it would seem I'm in denial if I deny that Brianna ever used drugs. I said, I'm not saying she never did. I just don't know why it's the main focus of this case. She's not on trial. But
and there's enough evidence to show what happened and the buildup to it. So I think that's what's so frustrating when cases like this happen. And there's all these red flags and there's all these things that should have made people stop and say, hey, let's look at this situation differently.
Right.
And it's frustrating when people make these choices because
I kept saying we had Corey for 5 years. Okay. None of this happened. None of this, DCPMP involvement.
Yeah.
If Brianna were such a horrible, strung out drug abuser,
yeah,
it's just, it does, and nobody was connecting the dots. Like, Chris comes into his life and then all of a sudden it's DCPMP every day and the police and this, and, but nobody wanted to hear that. Nobody wanted to listen to that.
Yeah. So he ended up getting 25 years. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what's his situation now and what's going on there?
He's in New Jersey State Prison. It's the former Trenton State prison. I believe he's in protective custody.
Mm.
And I'm sure it's not so bad because I haven't heard of anybody kicking his ass yet. So I'm sure, they're probably putting a lot of money on his commissary to buy people, or, he is protected. So he's only out of his cage for, I guess, an hour a day and not with other people, from my understanding. So,
Okay.
I mean, I'm always told, oh, the other prisoners don't like people who harm children or women. He's going to get his. Well, I don't think so. He's been in there a year and nobody got him yet. I'm hopeful,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, it all depends on the prison and the people in there, honestly.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, so this and you do write to him, is that correct? You write to him monthly or weekly?
I stopped. I wrote my last letter this month and I'm done. I have to. It wasn't good for me as much as I thought it was. I have to. He can't be in my head so much. I mean, he's always going to be because of what he did.
Yeah.
But there'll be another time for that.
Mhm.
I'm hoping I'm still here when he gets out. I do, because I'd like to go pick him up if he needs
Yeah.
a ride.
No,
Um,
I completely understand that.
yeah, because now I can't be threatened with, don't do this because it's going to affect the case. It's going to harm the case. There is no case.
Mhm.
So the case is over. So I don't have to worry about harming the case anymore.
Mhm.
I just, I don't know.
No, I understand because honestly, I think it was cathartic for you probably in the beginning to just get out everything that you felt and everything that you needed him to hear.
Right.
But
We weren't allowed to say anything to him in court. We never got to say any of this stuff,
mhm. Yeah, no, and so I think it was a good idea to do it, but like you said, how long do you end up doing that? And then you end up kind of stewing in that misery and hate every day. Instead of
Yeah.
trying to
And
move on, even though you hate what he did and you hate him, it's not, hopefully one day he's not going to rule every part of your life by thinking
right,
about him every day.
right, exactly.
And you'll be thinking about Corey and other things instead of him,
Right,
so,
right.
and what kind of activism, have you done any activism on behalf of Corey? Because I know you've done some with the opioid crisis, just as far as you even just talking about it. But is there
Right.
anything in the works about Corey or?
We're trying to get a law passed. We've gone before our state senator, and it's in the works. There's people on board with it, other senators, and it just doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
There were some things we felt, were key in Corey's death. I mean, like for instance, the hospital, a child abuse expert can't go home at 5 o'clock and only work Monday through Friday because child abuse happens 24/7, holidays
Yeah.
included. So what do you mean you don't have a child abuse expert there
Mhm.
now?
Yeah.
So that's one of the things we'd like to change.
Okay.
And also how the police handle these welfare checks that they go on, because I don't know if you're aware, but we find out, these two officers from Barnegat went to do a welfare check that we had asked them to do. And they questioned Corey in front of Chris, not just in front of him, but with Chris having a physical hold on him, because the photos that they took of Corey's bruises, Chris is in every one of the photos
Oh,
holding
wow.
him.
Wow,
You
that's
can't do that,
yeah.
and, so we're told that, oh, protocol is to question them alone or whatever. Well, then somebody needs to follow up and make sure that that's how it's being done. You can't,
Well, if I remember correctly, you even told me that initially that person, caseworker, came over and they didn't even take pictures of Corey. Your daughter or
No,
you had to tell him to go back in.
Brianna was outside in her car and was waiting for them to go there so she could say what happened. And the
Mhm.
guy was in and out in like 10, 15 minutes. And she's like, oh no, like, did you take pictures? Well, no, I just did a visual. And she's like, no, he's got bruises on his chest. He had a golf ball sized lump over his heart.
Mhm.
And the guy didn't even bother to take his shirt off and take any pictures. So Brianna told him, you need to go back in and do your job. And he did. He went back in. And I believe it was at that time the discussion about the treadmill video and there being video in the gym, or somehow I don't know if Brianna told the DCPMP worker, or if the guy had the thought process to go over by the gym maybe and look, and maybe
Uh-huh.
he saw it. I don't remember how it happened, but then the video came about and it was in their possession.
But that was 5 days before Corey passed
It
away,
was,
correct?
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the video was in their hands by, I thought I heard March 26th.
Okay.
So,
So they had ample time to take him out of his custody.
exactly.
Okay. Well, I really hope that you're able to get some laws changed, and you can send me the information, and if we need to write any letters or sign any petitions or anything like that, please send them over to me and I'll put them in the community posts. And
Oh, thank you. I appreciate
yeah,
that.
yeah, because children really mean a lot to me, and I can't even imagine. Um, as I was telling you before, I think the reason that this case, unlike other ones, has really set with me is that, I had an instance where I was abused by my uncle, and I was just not in a very safe environment growing up when I lived at my mom's house. And so I think when I started hearing Corey's case, and then you had told me why didn't he had asked you why God didn't help him. And I just remember I've been thinking about that almost every hour of every day since we spoke, because it's just heartbreaking. It's
I know.
heartbreaking.
And like I told you, I don't know, I wish I would have had time to think of a better answer than I gave him, but I was on the spot. I didn't know.
Mhm.
I didn't know what to say. I just
Yeah.
didn't know what to say.
No, and I agree. I mean, and I think you did the right thing, especially with not, being, you were in the moment. I've had the luxury of thinking about it, and honestly, I would have just stopped everything that we were doing, and I would have just asked him, "Okay, well, why aren't you safe?" I know you probably I'm just saying, if this happened to me and it was just kind of out of the blue, even though I knew things were happening, but he just spontaneously asked me or whatever, um, I would have said, uh I would have asked him, what was going on, and then I would have asked him, "Have you told the policeman?" Well, I know his grandpa was a policeman, so unfortunately, that's kind of scary too. So, have you told anybody besides me what's going on? And then we would have had a conversation about, who's safe to tell, and all of that.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, I believe, as a Christian, I've had so many scary, sad, traumatic things happen to me. Um, and I don't know. I mean, I just have faith and hope, and at the end of the day, I can't communicate that to anybody very well, without them experiencing it. Um, but when it comes to a child, it's so devastating, and uh I asked several people about, what would they say or what would you do in this entire situation? And most of them just said, well, at the end of the day, I probably would have went to prison, because they didn't know what else to do.
Right.
So yeah,
I mean, we thought about all this stuff, but we would be in jail. Corey would still be dead because who would he have gone to?
yeah, no, I totally agree. And so you running, he would have just been put into his care anyways. And
Yep.
yeah, no, I get it. So I commend you for not doing that, for trying to do the right thing and for trying to go through all of the legal processes and all of that, because that is way harder to do and way more admirable to do than, to just do what you want to do.
Yeah, like I said, we had many thoughts, how we should or what we should do, and we would weigh it out and think, okay, so if you do this, this is going to happen. He's still going to end up with him. If you do this, that bottom line, whatever happened, he was still going to go there. He was going to be made to go there. I know people are saying you should have ran with him. I just wouldn't have taken him there. Okay. And then when, the courts got involved, and he would have gone back there anyway. So you can say all that, but
No, I totally agree. It's really easy to pop off and say what you think somebody should have done, but until you're in that situation and have to make those choices, you really don't know what you would do. And
right.
And depending on the season in your life, the season you are in your life at the moment that it happens, it could be a completely different choice than you would normally make. So, okay. Well, so I want to talk now. Let's transition into your advocacy for the opioid crisis because of your son, Gino. And could you kind of explain to everybody what happened, and we'll go from there.
So Gino, I guess, struggled with addiction since he was about 16, 17. He had a skateboarding accident and it required a surgery. And so after the surgery, they were handing out, I guess, Percocet, like Tic Tacs, I guess, that was back before the bigger issue started. And so that's how it started for him, those pills. And I guess when he was no longer able to get them from the doctor, he would just get them on the street, because I guess he liked how they made him feel. I don't know. I didn't know this was happening. I had, Brianna and her younger sister, Nicole, were younger, and, you're wrapped up in everyday life, and Gina was a teenager, and I just wasn't aware that this was happening.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, I guess, we fast forward, we're living in Monroe, and there was a house just a street over from me, and it was the heroin house. That's where everybody went to buy their dope. And I didn't know this, I learned this later. And I don't know what happened. And the reason I found out about the house is because Brianna and her friends and my younger daughter got friendly with the young boy that lived in the house. It was his father selling the drugs.
Okay.
And they got friendly with the kid that lived there. He was like close to their age or whatever. So they got really friendly with him. And one evening, Nikki came home, Brianna's younger sister, but Brianna wasn't with her, and Brianna's friend wasn't with her. And I said, where's Bree? And she said, oh, hanging out with that kid, you know. And I'm like, okay, well, she, you know, Bree wasn't answering the phone or anything. So at some point I had to call the police department, because I'm like, you know, she was a kid, you know. And so when the police came, I believe they asked Nicole, well, who was Brianna with? And so Brianna or Nicole told them, and the female officer just shredded me. You're letting your daughter, she went off on me, hang out at that house and blah. And I said, what are you talking about? I don't even know the kid. Like, I don't know. They met him over at the shopping center over there. Like, I didn't know she was at his house. What do you mean? And I was told about what was going on at that house. So of course, you know, I'm not going to let my kid hang out there now. So anyway, to my understanding, that's how Gino got involved with this kid and his father, who was selling the heroin. Okay. It was marketed to him that it's a lot cheaper than those pills and blah, 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 whatever. And so Gino was, you know, getting it from there. So then I was very vocal on having this house shut down. So I made it my full-time job to sit at the shopping center and watch every car and every kid that went in and out of that house. And I would report it to the police. They got tired of hearing me. And when I got tired of them doing nothing, they did nothing about it. I got tired of them doing nothing. So I went above their heads and I went to the county level. And so then this guy at the county told me, you know, send me everything you get. Just deal with me. Don't deal with the Monroe police. Deal with me. And then it got to, you know, this relationship went on for weeks. And he said to me, listen, can you get your daughter, you know, to just go in there and like know what's going, like, you know, because she hangs out with the kid or whatever. And, you know, and I'm like, well, you know, I was uncomfortable with that, but to my knowledge, Brianna was still going behind my back and hanging out with this kid. So she was probably in there anyway. And she did start telling me things, and we did tell the detectives, you know, about it. And so this went on for a couple months, and they told me they were going to raid the house. It was going to happen. Well, they do. And so the local police department got mad at me because they wanted to do the raid, but they dragged their feet on it and didn't do it. And I went up, you know, so then I got pulled over every time I left my house by our local police because they were mad at me. Anyway, so long story short, Gino started on heroin. I still didn't realize this until a friend of mine, she's a recovering addict, I think, in recovery. She came to my house one day and she was just acting kind of like the cat who ate the mouse kind of thing. Did I say that right? Or is it the mouse who ate the cat? The cat who ate the mouse.
Cat who ate the mouse.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
She was just acting kind of weird.
Yeah.
And she said, I saw Gino last night. I said, you did? Where? And she indicated that it was at a drug dealer's house. Now, instead of me like, I don't know what I was thinking. Like, well, what the hell were you doing there? I'm thinking to myself, why was she there? Right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. There were just and I'm like, I got mad at her, you know, for saying that. Like, I don't know how to explain it. And so anyway, shortly after, you know, we confront Gino. You know, he was on heroin. He was not injecting it. He was, not that it matters, but so we sent him to rehab. But now I've learned that us wanting him to be clean and sending him isn't going to do the trick. He had to want to do it, and he was just in too deep.
Yeah.
And he struggled. Gosh, it was forever. I mean, from 17 years old until the day he died. I mean, he got clean. He was clean for about 2 years when Corey passed away. Well, about a year. And then, you know, we would just talk on the phone all the time. You know, he hated that I was just so distraught and just, what are we going to do? How do we fix this? You know, how do we handle Chris? How do we, we got to do something about what he did to Corey. And I was just a mess. I was upset, and Bree was upset, and Gino, he felt like he had no control, and he lived in Philadelphia. We lived here in New Jersey. And, he finally is like, oh, can I move back home? Can I come and stay with you? I need to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I should have said no, because I wasn't thinking that our house was so depressing at the time, because all we talked about was Corey's death.
Yeah.
And the court case and this and it, and we had gotten the news that Chris was arrested for the murder just about a week, I guess, before Gino passed away. So at least he knew that Chris had gotten arrested for it.
Good.
But it was St. Patrick's Day. And usually I was very in tune with Gino's attitude, and I could almost tell you if he was going to use or do something. You just could, I don't know how to explain it.
The patterns.
And I never saw it coming that particular night. He was working. He had a job with Brianna. He was working at her company. And they had gone out that night, Brianna, her boyfriend, and Gino and his best friend. They were going out. It was St. Patrick's Day. They were going to go eat, maybe have a drink or something. And he came home in his upbeat, normal way. And I always packed his lunch and Brianna's lunch every night, like they were little kids, and he was telling me what he wanted in his lunchbox. And he was asking me if we had any of these cereal bars left and could I get them if we didn't have, when I went to the store. And, that's how that night went. And, I'm so grateful that we always say, like, I love you before bed, because that was my last, I said, I love you. He said, I love you. And I went to bed, and I take sleep medication. I don't know if I told you I'd had an injury and I'm in a lot of pain all the time. And, I'm dealing with, everything that happened with Corey and stuff. And I had sleeping pills, and I hadn't taken one since Gino came to stay with me, because I was always afraid, what if something happened and I couldn't be alert, But that night I took one because I just felt like Gino was okay. And that's the night he overdosed in my house and passed away in my house. And,
Sorry.
I find out from, the autopsy that he had pure fentanyl in his system, no heroin, nothing else. And I always said Gino was what I called a professional drug addict. He'd been at it so long. He knew what he could do and get away with it, not overdosing. I mean, I'd like to think that he didn't go out and just buy pure fentanyl. I think he bought maybe a pill. I don't know, because there were no syringes, no puncture marks on his body during autopsy. I don't think he would have just bought pure fentanyl after not doing it for so long, not doing dope for so long. I'll never know. And he literally, they woke me up, and I go in my bathroom, I have Narcan, and I'm running out with it, not realizing the paramedics and the police had been in my house for quite some time working on him. He was already gone, and everybody just thought he was going to be saved with Narcan, and maybe they wouldn't have to tell me the worst part of the story,
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to upset me, because of everything that we'd gone through. And, so.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that that's happened to you. Unfortunately, that's happened to a lot of people.
I know.
So what are
Still
you
happening.
trying to do to bring attention to this?
I'd have to say that I used to be more vocal about addiction, and then everything happened with Corey. And unfortunately that kind of went on the back burner, and then, after it happened to Gino, unfortunately, it was still kind of on the back burner. I didn't really get to grieve Gino's death because we were still trying to get justice for Corey.
Yeah.
We didn't even get to grieve Corey's death because we were trying so hard to get justice.
Yeah.
So I'm just now starting to really comprehend that they're both gone.
Yeah.
I blame Chris Greger for Gino's death as well,
Mhm.
because I think that triggered this, everything that was going on. And I know some people might not agree with me. Something triggered Gino to use that night. Now, it could have been anything. I've told Toddy before, Gino could get upset about McDonald's getting his order wrong, and that could trigger him to use.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what made him use that night, but I'm pretty sure, or maybe I just want to blame Chris for everything bad that's happened. I don't know.
Mhm.
But you know, so like I said, I hadn't really been very vocal because, you know, we're still trying to get justice for Corey, and I'm just now starting to come around. And I must have mentioned it on Toddy when we were talking about Corey. And I don't know how this came about, but we talk every Monday morning at 9 a.m. on Toddy's
Yeah.
show about addiction.
I've seen
And
it.
I love it. And I don't know if having that outlet made me able to stop writing to Chris and stop focusing on him so much and using my, you know, what's the word I'm
Energy.
looking for? Like just trying to do better for other people and not
Yeah.
so much giving him so much of my time.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's what did it. This show that I do on Monday, if you call it a show, I don't know what you call this stuff yet. I'm all new to this, but you know, I mean, that Monday morning gives me a purpose. It gives
Mhm.
me, you know, I look forward to those Monday mornings. And, you know, I think that helped me, you know, give up on the writing to Chris. He doesn't have to have all my focus. There are other people out there who could use help.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I catch you guys, quite often, on Mondays, so I don't always say anything, but I'm in there watching.
And, you know, we don't always stick to topic either.
Yeah.
You know, we complain about a lot of things, but somehow it always comes back to that, you know, to
Mhm.
addiction and, you know, the struggle, everyday struggles that all of us have, but how it's 10 times worse for someone struggling with addiction, you
Mhm.
know? So
Yeah, what are your hopes, is there anything that you would like to work on, within the realm of addiction? Is it,
we just gotta, I don't know, you know, I'm still not, I don't know who you go to get things done anymore. I mean, we couldn't get Corey's life saved. And I
yeah.
feel the same about addiction. How do we make it so fentanyl's not brought into over here and so readily available? And how do we punish those who are selling it and killing our kids? Because that's what they are.
Mhm.
They're murderers,
Mhm. No, I
you know?
agree.
And how do we fix that? That's what we need to work on. And we need to make it, I don't know if it's still like this, but I remember Gino went to rehab. I lost count of how many times Gino went to rehab, but he used to say to me, I need money for dope. I have to go there with dope in my system or they're not going to let me stay. And I said, you're crazy. You think I'm stupid? I thought he was lying to me until they told me
Yeah.
if he didn't have it in his system, they weren't going to take him.
Mhm. Yeah,
I
I've
don't
heard
know if
that.
that's still a thing. Is that still the way it goes? Because is that the most ridiculous thing?
No, yeah, no, it is ridiculous, and I'm pretty sure it's like that around here from everything I understand and remember. Yeah. Yeah, which is, ridiculous because if you need help and you're thinking of falling off the wagon or thinking of whatever, then they should be there to help,
Right.
to be the
Instead, they
call.
want you to take that risk. And what if
Mhm.
what you got was a bad bag and you die that night?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, and I just want to make something really clear. Toddy and I don't give clinical
Yeah.
advice. We say this is our life experience. We never tell people what to do, how to do it. We talk about our own experiences. I just want to make sure people don't think we're out there being, you know, therapists or counselors or anything, because we're not.
Yeah,
We're
no,
just
you're
giving
just
our own experience.
yeah, you're people who want the message heard. And I think that, I wish there were a lot more people who would talk about stuff like this instead of, just sensational things. The
Right.
little stuff that adds up every day. And, in Oklahoma, there's fentanyl machine or not fentanyl test strips. There's machines all over the place. And at first I was shocked, but now I'm very happy that those exist because
Right.
otherwise there would probably be way more people. So, and I think everybody should carry a bottle of Narcan on them, especially if they're going to concerts or any kind of activity, where there's going to be a lot of people. Um, I think I think it's important that we try to do all we can to save as many people. And a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, they're just drug addicts, and they've made their choice." And no, I mean, like your son, a lot of them probably didn't even know, what they were getting, and paid the
Right.
price for that. And it's just not fair or okay.
I carry Narcan in my purse.
Mhm.
I haven't had to use it. I would
Mhm.
if I encountered someone.
Mhm.
Um,
I
yeah.
noticed the other day we had Narcan at our church. It's right above the paddles, whatever the I
Oh
can't
yeah,
remember.
yeah, yeah.
And I was just kind
Everybody,
of
it should be everywhere.
yeah, I looked at it and I took a picture of it because I was like, that's great to see, because
Yeah.
you would think, well, not with this church, but in some instances, there are religious circles that would just scoff at the idea of even bringing something like that in there because
I
they
know.
can't imagine that somebody would come into their facility using it. So,
Right. No,
yeah.
and it's addiction is there are still so many people that are afraid to speak up because they're judged.
Hmm.
I thought we were beyond that, but I don't think so, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah, Toddy, you're right. A lot of churches do hold NA meetings and AA meetings, but that happens at night. And so usually there are some places that I've run into, and I'm not saying that this is the overwhelming majority, but there are some places where they wouldn't even that wouldn't even be a thought. Why would that even be necessary? So it's good to see when people actually have the forethought. So is there anything that you're wanting to do in advocacy, either with child safety or opioid awareness, that you're trying to? I know you were talking about Corey's law, but is there anything else that you're trying to work towards?
Um, I have nothing in mind right now. I just started my own YouTube channel. Not very successful yet, but I'm hopeful.
Hey,
I titled it "Can You Hear Me Now?" because that's kind of my thing with Corey. Nobody was listening to him, nobody could hear him, and
yeah.
I've written a book titled the same. It's not published yet.
Oh, really?
But I want to do something geared more towards addiction. Um,
Mhm.
you know, for years I wanted to work in like a rehab facility. I didn't know what I don't know what my role would be there. I
Mhm.
mean, I don't have experience in addiction, just life experience. So I don't know that, that would ever happen. Um,
Well, you can
I
always
don't know.
volunteer. You can always
Yeah.
volunteer at like reentry programs in your area. Uh, there's all kinds of things that you can volunteer for.
Right.
So I would look into that.
I really, I think I'd like to do something like that. You know, I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts, I'm just,
Hmm.
there's things I want to do. I'm not done yet.
Yeah.
There's a lot I'd like to do, but I just, I have to take little steps and get some things done, and, finish what I started and then venture into something more.
Yeah, no, I understand. It's a slow process in getting to the point where you can actually jump in and do those kinds of things. I mean, I have not had nowhere near, the tragedies that you've had, but I've experienced my own, and it takes a while for you to get back up on your feet and become a semblance of what you used to be after those kinds of things.
It does. And, grief doesn't have an expiration date, I guess. I could be feeling great one morning and then out of nowhere, I'm in tears and I'm angry and it just, and it's times two, it's Gino and Corey. And,
Yeah.
it's just like, we're just now, court is over. It has been for a year. Sentencing was a year ago, August 2nd. It's like, then you think, okay, now the grieving starts, and it's, doesn't get easier. I got to tell you. And some people tell me, oh, it gets easier. And, you have to forgive Chris, and, you have to forgive the person that sold Gino the drugs. And no, I don't have to do any such thing. And I won't, I never will.
Yeah,
I can
that's
only wish they get what they gave,
Mhm.
and that's my honest opinion. They should be taken out in the same manner. I'd
Mhm.
feel a little bit better. I know that sounds horrible, but that's my feelings, and I don't think it's ever going to change.
No,
I
and you know what? You're new to the grief because now you don't have every day worrying about a goal or, emotion or whatever,
Right,
that you have had to deal with for all these years. And now you're going to be alone, with your thoughts a lot more. And so it's going to be a process. And everybody's process is different and it looks different. How long it lasts is different for everybody else and to
right,
the extent, so don't don't get down on yourself or whatever if you have those days because it does take quite a while.
right,
My father's tragic passing was in 2010, and it's been 15 years now, and I'm just now getting to the point where when his birthday comes or the anniversary of his death comes, I sometimes forget it. So, I'm not saying that you will by any means. I'm just saying for me, I'm starting to get through a process of, letting go of the hate and and all of that, but it took quite a while.
right. I mean, I guess, we're kind of, we don't go to the cemetery twice a day like we used to.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
you did? Wow.
yeah, we did for the longest time. And,
Wow.
I'm starting to, we realize we can talk to Corey anywhere. It doesn't have to be there, and I feel like, we just felt like we were leaving him there alone, if we weren't there every day. And I don't know how to explain it, how we felt,
Mhm.
but like I said, we're realizing we don't have to go up there physically to talk to Corey or to feel him or to, and it's really sad because my granddaughter, Brianna's daughter, that's where she knows her, like, that's where her brother is. She has no clue what death is or whatever, but she goes there and sits on the ground and plays with the toys that people leave for Corey, like little toy trucks and things. And as soon as you're almost down the street from the cemetery, she says, Corey, Corey, like she knows where we're going.
Aw.
And it's sad to see it. And it's, that's when the anger starts again. When I witness this, I'm like, God, I hate Chris Greger. You get mad all over again because you're having to witness this poor little baby is never going to get to know her big brother because that monster took his life. And that's so unfair,
No, I agree.
and so the anger, everything, starts all over again.
No, I can't even imagine. And especially being at that point where you're going and grieving every day, twice a day, that's just that puts it into perspective. Because I think a lot of times we forget after the cameras go away and after the news stops talking about it, you still exist. You still have to live your life. And
Right.
yeah. So it's every day it's a choice.
Yeah. And I used to, after sentencing, Justice for Corey, the group died down. Like there's not a lot going on. And I got angry.
Mhm.
Everybody forgot about it. It still kind of bothers me, that the group isn't so active, but I had to tell myself, listen, life went on for everybody else after sentencing.
Yeah.
And I get that. I do. But I just don't want everybody to forget Corey.
Mhm.
And that's my, my fear. I can't let that happen.
Mhm.
And
No, I agree.
it's hard to deal with, it's hard to think about it. But I understand that everybody isn't going to tune in every day to Justice for Corey to see if anybody posted or, I guess I get it, because he was my grandson. So I get why it's so difficult for me to, not think about it. But for other people, they have their own lives, their own family, so it's still hard though, that to think that maybe Corey won't be talked about, or I don't know.
Well, your YouTube channel, I think, is the perfect place to continue speaking loudly about all of the gaps and the faults of the social services in your area, children's social services, and holding them accountable so that this doesn't happen to other children, even if it's just in your area,
Right.
is important, to just keep talking about it and keep writing them and, writing them hard, saying, hey, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to forget this. And I'm not going to let you do this to another child.
Right. And then that's the hope that, Corey's law passes and they have to, like I said, the part about not having a child abuse expert at the hospital 24/7, they have to change that because, like I said, child abuse doesn't stop at 5:00.
No, I agree.
It happens all the time. There was several failures in Corey's case, not just that. So many. And,
Mhm.
I blame the Gregors as much as I blame Chris because they covered up for him. If David Greger had the balls to tell the truth and face reality, we wouldn't be here today. But he lied because he didn't want to tarnish his good name. So his good name meant more than that little boy, Corey, his grandson, that he never accepted as his grandson. Corey was a dirty little secret to them.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I'm not, I think that David should have accepted the fact that he raised a monster. He knew what he was capable of because he'd seen him abuse another child under his roof.
Mm-hmm.
And he should have stepped up and
Yeah.
done the right thing. And he didn't. He wanted to protect his name and maybe his pension. I don't know.
Have you ever thought about doing a civil suit against them just to make a statement? Or
You know what? By the time we thought about it, we were told it was too late. So we didn't. But, my book is my statement
okay.
because that's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's going to bother them and they're going to read it because I know that they're out here trying to get every little ounce of anything they can that we say or do. So I know they're going to read the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope they do. And I'll send them a copy. I know where they live. I'll mail them a copy, save them the trouble and the money. And I'll highlight the parts that they're mentioned in so they don't even have to read the whole thing if they don't want to. And I know it's going to piss them off because it's the truth. And it's the truth as I know it. We have court documents. I lived this. This is my life. They weren't there. And the parts they know about, they covered up. So I'm going to tell my whole truth. And it's going to expose them for exactly who they are. And they're not going to be happy about it. So I assume I'll be in court with them. I'm assuming they're going to try to
defamation.
something, but I don't know what they're going to get.
No, I just from the clip of the grandfather testifying, yeah, you can tell that there's a lot going on there. So
yeah. I don't know if you watched Sentencing Day. David Greger took the floor to once again try to save their name.
no, I
And
didn't see that part.
yeah, it was August 2nd last year. He took the floor, even though Chris said he didn't want his father to speak. He still spoke. And again, he was talking about all the good that they did for Corey and, all the good that the Gregors had to offer. But yet Corey's still dead. So how'd that work out, Mr. Officer?
Yeah, I noticed that when my husband and I were listening to his testimony, my husband pointed out that it seemed as if the grandfather was extremely controlling, considering all of or at least tried to be controlling in some sense, because he was talking about how he would communicate back and forth with the teacher and things like that. And we just thought that it felt more like he was trying to control every aspect of what was going on instead of just being a grandpa.
Yeah, he was never a grandfather. Corey really looked up to him and wanted him to be. But they were very cold. Corey was used to always being loved and kissed and hugged. And that's just how we are. And you didn't get that over there. It was different. And, I just think Corey they never fully accepted him because they even told me that David Greger told me that this isn't how they expected to have their first grandchild. And I said, yeah, well, it wasn't how I expected either, but he's here and we're grateful that he is, He felt that Corey should have been aborted. But after I proceeded to call him every name I could think of and told him what a great Catholic I was, and we didn't believe in that after I cursed him like a trucker. I told him where he could go and that we didn't believe in that, and that, it's unfortunate that he can't see
Mm-hmm.
what, joy
I
Corey
commend,
was.
yeah, I commend your daughter for going through with the pregnancy and raising Corey, because in those circumstances, a lot of women choose not to, and that shows her character and the strength that she had to, do that.
Right. I think, a lot of people would have gone the whole other way. I don't think a lot of girls would have made that same choice.
Yeah.
I'm so glad she did. I'm
Yeah.
so grateful that we had the time we had with Corey.
Mm-hmm.
We packed a lot into those years, and the Gregors will never know that joy.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't allow for that to happen. And I'm just grateful that we had that time with Corey, and he knows how much he was loved at my house
Mm-hmm.
and by my family.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like it's unfortunate for the Gregors that they didn't get to know that Corey
Yeah.
and feel that love and joy, you know.
Yeah, the pictures I saw of Corey, I mean, every one of them, I'm just like, oh my gosh, this
How
little boy
many
is
did you
so
see of
adorable.
Corey with the Gregors?
None.
There you
None.
go, because you know why? Because there aren't any.
Wow.
Yeah,
I didn't even think about that.
yeah.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yep.
that paints a bigger picture.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, wait, I'm lying. There's two with Chris. One, on the first time he met Corey, his girlfriend took a picture. And the second picture was the day he killed Corey, where Corey's unconscious in the picture with the blue gray lips and the gray skin. Yeah, that's the second one. And
Wow.
Chris looked very proud of that picture. He was smiling in the picture. Sick bastard.
I am, yeah. Yeah. Uh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you guys have had to go through this. And I'm sorry that Corey went through what he did. And I, I'm just thankful that you're telling his story and you're not letting people forget it so that it won't happen to anybody else, to any other kids, and any other parents out there that are struggling with the court system and with a evil parent.
We're fine now, we have been, since starting Justice for Corey years ago. There's so many similar cases all over the world, not just here in New Jersey, but such failure of these agencies that are here to protect our kids. They're not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you don't, I guess you don't know about it until it happens to you.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to hear on the news a little boy was killed in New York City, or, maybe not all the details. And you you think, oh, that's horrible. And life goes on, would go on for me.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
And, it's now you realize it happens all day long, every day, everywhere, all over the world. So many kids. And maybe it's the age of like the internet and stuff. That's why we hear so much more about it and all the details, but it happens all over. And there have been so many more Coreys since Corey passed away. It hasn't stopped. Nobody's learned anything from this.
And all the potential Coreys. So,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I've actually thought about getting into advocacy for foster children and things like that around here, but I'm afraid to because I get so emotionally invested. I don't know if I'd be better for the situation or worse for a situation, but I'm gonna still think about it because it is something that's weighed on my heart for a while. So
Yeah.
hopefully more people will step up who actually care and actually want to do the job for the reasons of helping children and not just for a paycheck or a job.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, well, Rebecca, is there anything that we missed that you would like to tell us or cover before we say good night?
I can't think of anything. I can't think of anything right now. I just want to thank you for allowing me to be here and to tell Corey's story and Gino's story. Yeah, I appreciate you allowing me to come here, and, hopefully things improve in the world.
Yeah, no, I hope so too. And please keep in contact with me, letting me know what's going on. And you're welcome here anytime if you want to just talk or whatever, and I'm glad that you have Toddy every Monday, to bounce your feelings off of, because she's a great person to
She is.
talk with,
Amazing.
Yeah, and so I hope that you guys can really make a difference in the arena of, in the area of drug addiction, opioid crisis, and that I really hope that you guys can do some great things, and you already are, because I've seen in the comments here where people actually depend on you every Monday. So
Right. And that's what I said. If we help one person not be lonely and feel like they don't matter, we're there to let them know they do matter. That's why we're here. And, if we help one person get through a day, then we did what we came to do,
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, thank you, Rebecca, so much for coming on and telling your story and being brave enough to continue the fight, even, when the court case and everything is over. I guess that's when the real fighting begins, because that's when you start advocating for change and trying to get something better to happen in your community than what happened with Corey.
Right.
So I thank you for doing that. We need advocates. We need people looking out for children and for the vulnerable in our population. So
I agree. Thank you.
yes, thank you, Rebecca, and thank you everybody for being here. And I really hope that you guys go out there and make some good choices this week to make the world a better place. And I hope everybody has a very blessed night. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Yeah, bye, Rebecca.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.